Shalom, and welcome to Parsha Highlights and Insights. This is Rabbi Fischer. This week we have a double Parsha, Vayakhel and Pekudei, and it will also bring us to the conclusion of Sefer Shemot. First, a few points about Vayakhel. We can say that we can divide Vayakhel itself into six parts. First, Moshe addresses the people, he assembles them, and he's going to tell them about building the Mishkan. But first, he uh, commands the people to observe the Shabbat, and that means on a very basic level that even though they're about to begin this national project of building the Mishkan, nevertheless, when Shabbat comes, they must stop that work, that construction, even though it is for a holy purpose, in order to observe Shabbat. And the prohibition against making a fire is mentioned explicitly here. Then Moshe speaks to the people on the subject of the Mishkan. First, he tells them to donate their materials and their skills for the Mishkan. And then in the next part of the parasha, the people actually begin bringing their donations for the Mishkan. Both men and women donate material that they have, donate various items on the list of items that must be brought. That need their skilled craftsmanship, and also the princes of the tribes donate precious stones towards the building. Moshe also says in Hashem's name who is going to be in charge of the building of the Mishkan. B'Tzalel and Oholiav, they will supervise the design and construction of the Mishkan, and they are formally appointed to take charge of all of these activities. The people donate a great deal, so much so that it is necessary to command the people to stop giving simply because enough has been given. And so they're told not to give any more. And then we have the instructions about how to build all the various parts of the Mishkan, such as we heard about in the past Parshot, the tent, the coverings of the Mishkan, the boards, the Aron, the ark in which the tablets are kept, the Shulchan, the table, the menorah, the incense altar, which is made out of gold, the copper altar for the bringing of sacrifices, also the basin and stand, the kior. And here we're told, special note about it, is that those were made from the mirrors that were donated by the women. We'll come back to that topic later. And then at the end of Parshat Vayakhel, the description of the building of the courtyard that went around the Mishkan area. So the sixth and last part of Parashat Vayakhel describes how all of these items were built under the supervision of B'Tzalel and Oholiav. Then we move on to Parashat Pekudei. Pekudei itself, we might say, is divided into 9 parts. First, we have an accounting of all of the materials that had been collected and used for the Mishkan. It's all weighed out and told exactly how much there was, how much gold, how much silver, how much copper, and what everything was used for. And then we continue with the description of the making of the parts of the Mishkan. Here we move on to the garments, the ephod, what it was made from, and in what manner it was made, the choshen and the me'il, These are garments that are worn by the Kohen Gadol. And then the making of the garments for all of the Kohanim, the materials from which they're made and the manner in which they're made. And so we come to the conclusion of the actual building of the Mishkan, of all of the various parts of the Mishkan. And the people present the Mishkan to Moshe, and Moshe blesses the people for all of their work. Then we have the command that is given to Moshe that the Mishkan is to be erected and put into use on the first day of the first month of the second year, nearly a full year since the Exodus, since Yetziat Mitzrayim. And then, as directed, Moshe erects the Mishkan, shows how it is to be done, and that will be important for instructing those who will be involved in erecting the Mishkan, because remember, the Mishkan is portable. It's taken from one place to another. It is dismantled and then reassembled. When all of the Mishkan and all of its parts are finally put together, the divine presence, the Shekhinah, reveals itself to the entire people of Israel. It fills and covers the Mishkan, and it will remain that way throughout the journeys of Bnei Israel in the wilderness until they finally do come to the land of Israel. And that brings us to the end of Parashat Pekudei, which is also the end of Sefer Shemot. Now, going back to Vayakhel, as I mentioned, the kiol, was the laver. It's a big tub with water that will be used for washing the feet and hands of the Kohanim. So it was made from the mirrors of the women, meha b'marot hatzovot asher tzavu petach ohel moed. The mirrors of the women who crowded around the entrance to the Ohel Moed, the tent of meeting. And so Rashi gives us some background as to this donation. These are mirrors which are made of polished copper, and they used them when they were living in Egypt in order to make themselves beautiful. And when it came time to donate various donations to the Mishkan, jewelry, and the like, they gave these as well. Moshe initially did not want to accept them because he thought that mirrors were associated with vanity, and therefore it wouldn't be appropriate to accept them for the Mishkan. But Hashem instructed him not only that they are to be accepted, but that they are very, very dear, because in Egypt, when the men were despondent due to the situation of being enslaved for generations, when the men were despondent, the women looked forward, had a long-term view of things. They had trust in Hashem that he would take them out as he had originally planned. And therefore, in order to be with their husbands, they made a special effort to make themselves beautiful for their husbands. And they used the mirrors for that purpose. Therefore, when it refers to the mirrors as the marot hatzovot, which literally means the mirrors of the women who crowded, but it also means that these are the mirrors of the women who created tzvaot, hosts of Jews. It's through them that the Jewish people continued to multiply. And therefore Hashem says, accept this very, very precious gift. It promoted peace between husband and wife, and therefore it should be used for the Mishkan to purify the Kohanim as they are about to do their service, which produces peace between Hashem and his people. At the very end of the parasha, the end of Pekudei, at the end of the book of Shemot, we are confronted with the fact that Mishkan is built, completely built, and Hashem's presence, his glory, the kavod of Hashem filled the Mishkan. The question is asked, why is the building of the Mishkan included in the book of Shemot? The book of Shemot primarily seems to be about the Exodus. So we understand why we have the enslavement of Egypt, the oppression of Egypt, the exodus from Egypt, the giving of the Torah at Sinai, the initial mitzvot. But the Mishkan seems to be kind of an afterthought, and it maybe should belong to the next book of the Torah, Vayikra, which is about among other things, about the sacrifices. So in the Ramban's introduction to the book of Shemot, he makes the point that the purpose of the Exodus was not merely to free the Jewish people from slavery, nor even to give them the Torah, but the ultimate purpose is to have the Shekhinah, the divine presence, the kavod of Hashem, to be reunited with his people in a more ongoing sense. And as he said, the exile was not complete until they were restored to the original state that they were in. And that only happened when they built the Mishkan, bringing Hashem's presence into their midst, and in that sense, replicating and perpetuating the moment at Sinai when Hashem appeared to the people with the people surrounding him, and the Mishkan was going to continue that. So it's only then that they were truly freed and redeemed. And that's why the Mishkan, building of the Mishkan and bringing Hashem's presence into the midst of the people, is an integral part of the book of Shemot. Thank you all for joining me in this exploration of the end of the book of Shemot, Vayakhel and Pekudei. This has been Rabbi Abraham Fischer for Parsha Highlights and Insights, saying Shalom.